Good morning, everyone. So it is still April the 6th, 2021, also the 24th of Nisan, 5781. And in this video, we're going to begin the book of Vayikra, which we know as the book of Leviticus. And just a little interesting note here in my study Bible, it says that although the title in Hebrew, Vayikra, refers to the first words of the first passage, Adonai called, this third book of Moshe or Moses is often titled Torah Kohanim, meaning instructions of the priests. So I just thought that would be kind of interesting. So starting chapter 1. And I am also still at this awesome little coffee house thing called PB&J's, and I hope that if you're in the area that you will come out and see it. It's located in Fletcher, which is in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina, and it is a beautiful sunny day here. So, and it's supposed to be up into like the 60s or 70s today, so it'll be a beautiful, gorgeous day for us. So, beginning in chapter 1, verse 1, Adonai called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. He said, "Speak to the people of Israel. Say to them, when any of you brings an offering to Adonai, you may bring your animal offering, either from the herd or from the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he must offer a male without defect. He is to bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting so that it can be accepted by Adonai. He is to lay his hand upon the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. He is to slaughter the young bull before Adonai, and the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, are to present the blood. They are to splash the blood against all sides of the altar, which is by the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to skin the burnt offering and cut it in pieces. The descendants of Aharon, the Kohen, are to put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. The sons of Aharon, the Kohen, are to put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. The sons of Aharon, the Kohen, are to arrange pieces, the head and the fat of the wood which is on the fire on the altar. He is to wash the entrails and lower parts of the legs with water, and the Kohen is to cause all of it to go up in smoke on the altar as a burnt offering. It is an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. If his offering is from the flock, whether from the sheep or from the goats, for a burnt offering, he must offer a male without defect. He is to slaughter it on the north side of the altar before Adonai, and the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, are to splash his blood against all sides of the altar. He is to cut it into pieces, and the Kohen is to arrange them with the head and fat of the wood which is on the fire on the altar. He is to wash the entrails and lower parts of the legs with water, and the Kohen is to offer it all and make it go up in smoke on that altar as a burnt offering. It is an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. It's these animals that had to be sacrificed needed to be without blemish, because our ultimate sacrifice for our sins was Yeshua, or Jesus, and he was perfect without defect. So that's the reason why these also had to be. There could not be anything wrong with them. So verse 14, if his offering to Adonai is a burnt offering of birds, he must offer a dove or a young pigeon. The Kohen is to bring it to the altar, snap off its head, and make it go up in smoke on the altar. Its blood is to be drained out on the side of the altar. He is to remove the food pouch and its feathers from its neck and discard it on the pile of ashes just east of the altar. He is to pull it open with a wing on each side, but without tearing it in half. The Kohen is to make it go up in smoke on the altar, on the wood which is on the fire, as a burnt offering. It is an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. Anyone who brings a grain offering to Adonai is to make his offering of fine flour. He is to pour olive oil on it and put frankincense on it. He is to bring it to the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim. The Kohen is to take a handful of fine flour from it, together with its olive oil and all its frankincense, and make this reminder portion go up in smoke on the altar as an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. But the rest of the grain offering will belong to Aharon and his sons. It is an especially holy part of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. When you bring a grain offering which has been baked in the oven, it is to consist of either unleavened cakes made of fine flour mixed with olive oil, or matzah spread with olive oil. If your offering is a grain offering cooked on a griddle, it is to consist of unleavened fine flour mixed with olive oil. You are to break it in pieces and pour olive oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering cooked in a pot, it is to consist of fine flour with olive oil. You are to bring the grain offering prepared in any of these ways to Adonai. It is to be presented to the Kohen, and he is to bring it to the altar. The Kohen is to remove the reminder portion of the grain offering and make it go up in smoke on the altar as an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. But the rest of the grain offering will belong to Aharon and his sons. It is an especially holy part of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. No grain offering that you bring to Adonai is to be made with leaven, because you are not to cause any leaven or honey to go up in smoke as an offering made by fire to Adonai. As an offering of first fruits you may bring these to Adonai, but they are not to be brought up into the altar to make a fragrant aroma. You are to season every grain offering of yours with salt. Do not omit from your grain offering the salt of the covenant with your God, but offer salt with all your offerings. If you bring a grain offering of first fruits to Adonai, you are to bring as the grain offering from your first fruits kernels of grain from fresh ears, dry roasted with fire. Put olive oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. The Kohen is to cause the reminder portion of it, its grits and olive oil, with all its frankincense, to go up in smoke. It is an offering made by fire for Adonai. Chapter 3. If his offering is a sacrifice of peace offerings, then, if he offers before Adonai an animal from the herd, then, no matter whether it is male or female, it must be without defect. He is to lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, are to splash the blood against all sides of the altar. He is to present the sacrifice of the peace offerings as an offering made by fire to Adonai. It is to consist of the fat covering the inner organs, all the fat above the inner organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat on them near the flanks, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Aharon's sons will make it go up in smoke on the altar on top of the burnt offering, which is on the wood on the fire. It is an offering made by fire, a fragrant aroma for Adonai. If his offering for a sacrifice of peace offerings to Adonai is from the flock, then, when he offers it, no matter whether it is male or female, it must be without defect. If he brings a lamb for his offering, then he is to present it before Adonai. He is to lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon are to splash its blood against all sides of the altar. From the sacrifices made as peace offerings, he is to present Adonai with the offering made by fire. It is to consist of its fat, the entire fat tail, which he will remove close to the altar backbone, which he will remove close to the lower backbone, the fat covering the inner organs, all the fat above the inner organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat on them near the flanks, and the coverings of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The Kohen will make it go up in smoke on the altar. It is food, an offering made by fire to Adonai. If his offering is a goat, then he is to present it before Adonai. He is to lay his hand on its head and solder it in front of the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon are to splash its blood against all sides of the altar. He is to present from it his offering, an offering made by fire to Adonai. It is to consist of the fat covering the inner organs, all the fat above the inner organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat on them near the flanks, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The Kohen will make them go up in smoke on the altar. It is food, an offering made by fire to be a fragrant aroma. All the fat belongs to Adonai. It is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations, wherever you live, that you will eat neither fat nor blood. Chapter 4. Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell the people of Israel, if anyone sins inadvertently against any of the mitzvot of Adonai concerning things which should not be done, if he does any one of them, then, if it is the anointed Kohen who sinned and thus brought guilt on the people, he is to offer Adonai a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he committed. He must bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before Adonai, lay his hand on the bull's head, and slaughter the bull in the presence of Adonai. The anointed Kohen is to take some of the bull's blood and bring it to the tent of meeting. The Kohen is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times in the presence of Adonai, in front of the curtain of the sanctuary. The Kohen is to put some of the presence of Adonai. The Kohen is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar for fragrant incense before Adonai, there in the tent of meeting. All the remaining blood of the bull he is to pour out at the base of the altar for burnt offerings, which is the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to remove from the bull for the sin offering all of its fat, the fat covering the inner organs, all the fat above the inner organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat on them near the flanks, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys, as it is removed from an ox sacrificed as a peace offering. And the Kohen is to make these parts go up in peace on the altar for burnt offerings, with the bull's hide and all its flesh, with its head, the whole parts of its legs, its inner organs and dung. In other words, the entire bull he is to bring outside the camp to a clean place, where the ashes are emptied out. There he is to burn it on wood with fire. There, where the ashes are emptied out, it is to be burned up. And just a little interesting note, the first word of the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Aleph, and its representation is a bull or an ox. It's also the letter for God. So in the Paleo Hebrew, which is the original Hebrew, it was shaped like a sideways A. It's kind of like, let me go up there. It's kind of like this. Oh, I can't do it up here. So kind of like that, and then it's got like the little line down through here. So it kind of looks like a picture of an ox or a bull. Let me pause this just a moment, and I will draw what that actually looks like. So, let's see. I hope you can see this. So this is what the Hebrew letter Aleph in the Paleo Hebrew look like. Of course, this shows it backwards according to my screen, so it actually should be pointed this way. Right, so when you're looking at it, the point down here is actually supposed to be on your left. So I'm not sure how this is going to show up in the video, but when you're looking at it, but that's the way it's supposed to be. So it's just kind of interesting to me that letter represents God, and the picture, the picture looks like an ox or bull and represents ox or bull, and the sin offering and the peace offering was an ox or bull. So I don't know if there's any connection to that, but that's just something that I found kind of interesting. So picking up in verse 13, if the entire community of Israel inadvertently makes a mistake, with the assembly being unaware of the matter, and they do something against any of the mitzvot of Adonai concerning things which should not be done, they are guilty. When the sin they have committed becomes known, then the assembly is to offer a young bull as a sin offering and bring it before the tent of meeting. The leaders of the community are to lay their hands on the bull's head and slaughter the bull in the presence of Adonai. The anointed Cohen is to bring some of the bull's blood to the tent of meeting. The Cohen is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times in the presence of Adonai in front of the curtain. He is to put some of the blood on the horns of the altar before Adonai, there in the tent of meeting. All of the remaining blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar for burnt offerings, which is at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to remove all its fat and make it go up in smoke on the altar. This is what he is to do with the bull. He must do the same with this bull as he does with the one for the sin offering. Thus, the Cohen will make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. He is to bring the bull outside the camp and burn it he is to bring the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is a sin offering for the assembly. When a leader sins and inadvertently does something against any of the mitzvot of Adonai concerning things which should not be done, he is guilty. If the sin in which she committed becomes known to him, he is to bring as his offering a male goat without defect, lay his hand on the goat's head, and slaughter it in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering in the presence of Adonai. It is a sin offering. The Cohen is to take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. Its remaining blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar for burnt offerings. All its fat he is to make go up in smoke on the altar, like the fat of the sacrifice for peace offerings. Thus the Cohen will make atonement for him in regard to his sin, and he will be forgiven. If an individual among the people commits a sin inadvertently, doing something against any of the mitzvot of Adonai concerning things which should not be done, he is guilty. If the sin he committed becomes known to him, he is to bring as his offering a female goat without defect for the sin he committed. Lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter the sin offering in the place of burnt offerings. The Cohen is to take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. All its remaining blood he is to pour out at the entrance of the altar. All its fat he is to remove, as the fat is removed from the sacrifice for peace offerings. And the Cohen is to make it go up in smoke on the altar as a fragrant aroma for Adonai. Thus the Cohen will make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. If he brings the lamb as his sin offering, he is to bring a female without defect, lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slaughter it as a sin offering in the place where they slaughter burnt offerings. The Cohen is to take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. All its remaining blood he is to pour out at the base of the altar. All its fat he is to remove, as the fat of a lamb is removed from the sacrifice for peace offerings, and the Cohen is to make it go up in smoke on the altar on top of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. Thus the Cohen will make atonement for him in regard to the sin he committed, and he will be forgiven. Chapter 5. If a person who is a witness sworn to testify sins by refusing to tell what he has seen or heard about the matter, he must bear the consequences. If a person touches something unclean, whether the carcass of an unclean wild animal, a domestic animal, or a reptile, he is guilty, even though he may not be aware that he is unclean. If he touches some human uncleanness, no matter what the source of his uncleanness is, and is unaware of it, then, when he learns of it, he is guilty. If someone allows to slip from his mouth an oath to do evil or to do good, and he doesn't remember that he clearly spoke this oath, then, no matter what it was about, when he learns of it, he is guilty. A person guilty of any of these things is to confess in what manner he sinned and bring his guilt offering to Adonai for the sin he committed. It is to be a female from the flock, either a lamb or a goat, as a sin offering, and the Kohen will make atonement for him in regard to his sin. If he can't afford a lamb, he is to bring as his guilt offering for the sin he committed 2 doves or 2 young pigeons for Adonai, the one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering. He is to bring them to the Kohen, who will offer the one for a sin offering first. He is to wring its neck but not remove the head. Sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, and drain out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. He is to prepare the second as a burnt offering in the manner prescribed. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for him in regard to the sin which he committed, and he will be forgiven. But if his means are insufficient even for 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, then he is to bring as his offering for the sin he committed 2 quarts of fine flour for a sin offering. He is not to put any olive oil or frankincense on it, because it is a sin offering. He is to bring it to the Kohen, and the Kohen is to take a handful of it as its reminder portion, and make it go up in smoke on the altar on top of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. It is a sin offering. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for him in regard to the sin he committed concerning any of these things, and he will be forgiven. The rest will belong to the Kohanim, as with a grain offering. Adonai said to Moshe, "If anyone acts improperly and inadvertently sins in regard to the holy things of Adonai, he is to bring as his guilt offering for Adonai a ram without defect from the flock, or its equivalent in silver shekels, using the sanctuary shekel as the standard, according to your appraisal of its value. It is a guilt offering. In addition, he is to make restitution for whatever he did wrong in regard to the holy thing. Moreover, he is to add to that 1/5 and give it to the Kohen. Then the Kohen will make atonement with the ram of the guilt offering, and he will be forgiven. If someone sins by doing something against any of the mitzvot of Adonai, concerning things which should not be done, he is guilty, even if he is unaware of it, and he bears the consequences of his wrongdoing. He must bring a ram without defect from the flock, or its equivalent, according to your appraisal, to the Kohen for a guilt offering. The Kohen will make atonement concerning the error which he committed, even though he was aware of it, and he will be forgiven. It is a guilt offering. He is certainly guilty before Adonai. Adonai said to Moshe, "If someone sins and acts perversely against Adonai by dealing falsely with his neighbor in regard to a deposit or security entrusted to him, by stealing from him, by extorting him, or by dealing falsely in regard to a lost object he has found, or by swearing to a lie, if a person commits any of these sins, then, if he sinned and is guilty, he is to restore whatever it was he stole or obtained by extortion, or whatever was deposited with him, or the lost object which he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely. He is to restore it in full, plus an additional 1/5. He must return it to the person who owns it on the day when he presents his guilt offering. He is to bring as his guilt offering to Adonai a ram without defect from the flock, or its equivalent, according to your appraisal, to the Kohen. It is a guilt offering. Thus the Kohen will make atonement for him before Adonai and he will be forgiven in regard to whatever it was he did that made him guilty. Chapter 6. Adonai said to Moshe, "Give this order to Aharon and his sons. This is the law for the burnt offering." And the Hebrew word for burnt offering is olah, O-L-A-H. It is what goes up on its firewood on the altar all night long until morning. In this way the fire of the altar will be kept burning. And the Hebrew word for goes up is also the word olah, O-L-A-H. When the fire has consumed the burnt offering on the altar, the Cohen, having put on his linen garment and covered himself with his linen shorts, is to remove the ashes and put them beside the altar. Then he is to remove those garments and put on others, before carrying the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. In this way, the fire on the altar will be kept burning and not be allowed to go out. Each morning, the Cohen is to kindle wood on it, arrange the burnt offering, and make the fat of the peace offerings to go up in smoke. Fire is to be kept burning on the altar continually. It is not to go out. This is a law for the grain offering. The sons of Aharon are to offer it before Adonai in front of the altar. He is to take from the grain offering a handful of its fine flour, some of its olive oil, and all of the frankincense which is on the grain offering. And he is to make this reminder portion of it go up in smoke on the altar as a fragrant aroma for Adonai. The rest of it Aharon and his sons are to eat. It is to be eaten without leaven in a holy place. They are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It is not to be baked with leaven. I have given it as their portion of my offerings made by fire. Like the sin offering and the guilt offering, it is especially holy. Every male descendant of Aharon may eat from it. It is his share of the offerings for Adonai made by fire forever through all your generations. Whatever touches those offerings will become holy. Adonai said to Moshe, "This is the offering for Adonai that Aharon and his sons are to offer on the day he is anointed. 2 quarts of fine flour, half of it in the morning and half in the evening, as a grain offering from then on. It is to be well mixed with olive oil and fried on a griddle. Then bring it in, break it in pieces, and offer the grain offering as a fragrant aroma for Adonai. The anointed Cohen, who will take Aharon's place from among his descendants, will offer it. It is a perpetual obligation. It must be entirely made to go up in smoke for Adonai. Every grain offering of the Cohen is to be entirely made to go up in smoke. It is not to be eaten." Adonai said to Moshe, "Tell Aharon and his sons, this is the law for the sin offering. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before Adonai in the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. It is especially holy. The Cohen who offers it for sin is to eat it. It is to be eaten in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches its flesh will become holy. If any of its blood splashes on any item of clothing, you are to wash it in a holy place." Okay, I've lost my place here. Okay. The clay pot. So starting in verse 21 or verse 28 if you're reading in the King James Version. The clay pot in which it is cooked must be broken. If it is cooked in a bronze pot, it must be scoured and rinsed in water. Any male from a family of Kohanim may eat the sin offering. It is especially holy. But no sin offering which has had any of its blood brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place is to be eaten. It is to be burned up completely. Chapter 7. This is a law for the guilt offering. It is especially holy. They are to slaughter the guilt offering in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering, and its blood is to be splashed against all sides of the altar. He is to offer all its fat, the fat tail, the fat covering, the inner organs, the 2 kidneys, the fat on them near the flanks, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The Kohen will make them go up in smoke on the altar as an offering made by fire to Adonai. It is a guilt offering. Every male from a family of Kohanim may eat it. It is to be eaten in a holy place. It is especially holy. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. The same law governs them. It will belong to the Kohen who uses it to make atonement. The Kohen who offers someone's burnt offering will possess the hide of the burnt offering which he has offered. Every grain offering baked in the oven, cooked in a pot, or fried on a griddle will belong to the Kohen who offers it. But every grain offering which is mixed with olive oil or is dry will belong to all the sons of Aharon equally. This is the law for sacrificing peace offerings offered to Adonai. If a person offers it for giving thanks, he is to offer it with the thanksgiving sacrifice of unleavened cakes mixed with olive oil, matzahs bread with olive oil, and cakes made of fine flour mixed with olive oil and fried. With cakes of leavened bread, he is to present his offering together with the sacrifice of his peace offerings for giving thanks. From each kind of offering, he is to present one as a gift for Adonai. It will belong to the Kohen who splashes the blood of the peace offerings against the altar. The meat of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for giving thanks is to be eaten on the day of his offering. He is not to leave any of it until morning. Thanks is let's see. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Here we go. Verse 16. But if the sacrifice connected with this offering is for a vow or is a voluntary offering, then, while it is to be eaten on the day he offers his sacrifice, what remains of it may be eaten the next day. However, what remains of the meat of the sacrifice on the 3rd day is to be burned up completely. If any of the meat of the sacrifice of his peace offerings is eaten on the 3rd day, the sacrifice will neither be accepted nor credited to the person offering it. Rather, it will have become a disgusting thing, and whoever eats it will bear the consequences of his wrongdoing. Meat which touches something unclean is not to be eaten, but burned up completely. As for the meat, everyone who is clean may eat it, but a person in a state of uncleanness who eats any meat from the sacrifice of peace offerings made to Adonai will be cut off from his people. Anyone who touches something unclean, whether the uncleanness be from a person, from an unclean animal, or from some other unclean, detestable thing, and then eats the meat from the sacrifice of peace offerings for Adonai, that person will be cut off from his people. Adonai said to Moshe, "Say to the people of Israel, you are not to eat the fat of the bulls, sheep, or goats. The fat of animals that die of themselves or are killed by wild animals may be used for any other purpose, but under no circumstances are you to eat it. For whoever eats the fat of animals of the kind used in presenting an offering made by fire to Adonai will be cut off from his people. You are not to eat any kind of blood, whether from birds or animals, in any of your homes. Whoever eats any blood will be cut off from his people." Adonai said to Moshe, "Say to the people of Israel, a person who offers his sacrifice of peace offerings to Adonai is to bring part of his sacrifice of peace offering as his offering for Adonai. He is to bring with his own hands the offerings for Adonai made by fire. He is to bring the breast with its fat. The breast is to be waved as a wave offering before Adonai. The Kohen is to make the fat go up in smoke on the altar, but the breast will belong to Aharon and his descendants. You are to give the right thigh from your sacrifices of peace offerings to the Cohen as a contribution. The descendant of Aharon who offers the blood of the peace offerings is to have the right thigh as his share. For the breast that has been waved and the thigh that has been contributed, I have taken from the people of Israel out of their sacrifices of peace offerings, and given them to Aharon the Cohen and to his descendants as their share forever from the people of Israel. On the day when Aharon and his sons were presented to serve Adonai in the office of a Cohen, this portion was set aside for him and his descendants from the offerings for Adonai made by fire. On the day they were anointed, Adonai ordered that this be given to them by the people of Israel. It is their share forever through all their generations. This is the law for the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, the consecration offering, and the sacrifice of peace offerings, which Adonai ordered Moshe on Mount Sinai on the day he ordered the people of Israel to present their offerings to Adonai in the Sinai desert. Adonai said to Moshe, "Take Aharon and his sons with him, the garments, the anointing oil, the bull for the sin offering, the 2 rams and the basket of matzah, and assemble the entire community at the entrance to the tent of meeting." Moshe did as Adonai ordered him, and the community was assembled at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Moshe said to the community, "This is what Adonai has ordered to be done." Moshe brought Aharon and his sons, washed them with water, put the tunic on him, wrapped the sash around him, clothed him with a robe, put the ritual vest on him, wrapped around him the decorated belt, and fastened the vest to him with it. He put the breastplate on him, and into the breastplate he put the Urim and Thummim. He set the turban on his head, and on the front of the turban he affixed the gold plate, the holy ornament, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. Then Moshe took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and everything in it, thus consecrating them. He sprinkled some on the altar 7 times, anointing the altar with all its utensils and the basin with its base. To consecrate them, he poured some of the anointing oil on Aharon's head and anointed him to consecrate him. Moshe brought Aharon's sons, clothed them with the tunics, wrapped sashes on them, and put headgear on them as Adonai had ordered Moshe. Then the young bull for the sin offering was brought, and Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the bull for the sin offering. After it had been slaughtered, Moshe took the blood and put it on the horns of the altar all the way around with his finger, thus purifying the altar. The remaining blood he poured out at the base of the altar and consecrated it to make atonement for it. Moshe took all the fat on the inner organs, the covering of the liver, the 2 kidneys, and their fat, and made it go up in smoke on the altar. But the bull, its hide, its flesh, and its tongue were taken outside the camp and burned up completely, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. Next, the ram for the burnt offering was presented. Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram, and after it had been slaughtered, Moshe splashed the blood on all sides of the altar. When the ram had been cut in pieces, Moshe made the head, the pieces, and the fat go up in smoke. When the inner organs and the lower parts of the legs had been washed with water, Moshe made the entire ram go up in smoke on the altar. It was a burnt offering giving a fragrant aroma, an offering made by fire to Adonai, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. Then the other ram was presented, the ram of consecration. Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. After it had been slaughtered, Moshe took some of its blood and put it on the tip of Aharon's right ear, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Next, Aharon's sons were brought, and Moshe put some of the blood on the tips of their right ears, on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the big toes of their right feet. Then Moshe splashed the blood on all sides of the altar. He took the fat tail, all the fat covering the inner organs, the covering of the liver, the 2 kidneys with their fat, and the right thigh. From the basket of matzah that was before Adonai, he took 1 piece of matzah, 1 cake of oiled bread, and 1 wafer, and placed them on the fat and on the right thigh. Then he put it all in Aharon's hands and in the hands of his sons, and waved them as a wave offering before Adonai. Moshe took them out of their hands and made them go up and smoke on the altar on top of the burnt offering. They were a consecration offering, giving a fragrant aroma, an offering made by fire to Adonai. Moshe took the breast and waved it as a wave offering before Adonai. It was Moshe's portion of the Realm of Consecration, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. Moshe took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood which was on the altar, and sprinkled it on Aharon and his clothing, and on his sons with him and their clothing, and consecrated Aharon and his clothing together with his sons and their clothing. Moshe said to Aharon and his sons, "Boil the meat at the door of the tent of meeting, and eat it there with the bread that is in the basket of consecration, as I ordered when I said that Aharon and his sons were to eat it. Whatever is left over of the meat and bread you are to burn up completely. You are not to go out from the entrance to the tent of meeting for 7 days, until the days of your consecration are over, since Adonai will be consecrating you for 7 days. He ordered done what has been done today, in order to make atonement for you. You are to remain at the entrance to the tent of meeting day and night for 7 days, thereby obeying what Adonai ordered done, so that you may not die. For this is what I was ordered." Aharon and his sons did all the things which Adonai ordered through Moshe. I kept saying 7 days over and over and over, that they were to stay there for 7 days, so I think he's really trying to hit home a point there. Chapter 9. On the 8th day, Moshe called Aharon, his sons, and the leaders of Israel, and said to Aharon, "Take a male calf for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering, both without defect, and offer them before Adonai. Then tell the people of Israel, take a male goat for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both a year old and without defect, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offerings, to sacrifice before Adonai. Also a grain offering mixed with olive oil, because today Adonai is going to appear to you." They brought what Moshe had ordered before the tent of meeting, and the whole community approached and stood before Adonai. Moshe said, "This is what Adonai has ordered you to do, so that the glory of Adonai will appear to you." Moshe told Aharon, "Approach the altar, offer your sin offering and burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and the people. Then present the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as Adonai ordered." So Aharon approached the altar and slaughtered the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. The sons of Aharon presented the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar. Then he poured out the blood at the base of the altar. But the fat, the kidneys, and the covering of the liver of the sin offering he made go up and smoke on the altar, as Adonai had ordered Moshe. The meat and the skin were burned up completely outside the camp. Next he slaughtered the burnt offering. Aharon's sons brought him the blood, and he splashed it against all sides of the altar. They brought him the burnt offering, piece by piece, and the head, and he made them go up and smoke on the altar. He washed the inner organs and the lower parts of the legs, and made them go up and smoke on top of the burnt offering on the altar. Then the people's offering was presented. He took the goat of the sin offering, which was for the people, slaughtered it, and offered it for sin, like the earlier sin offering. The burnt offering was presented, and he offered it in the prescribed manner. The grain offering was presented. He took a handful of it and made it go up and smoke on the altar, in addition to the morning's burnt offering. He slaughtered the ox and the ram. The people sacrificed as peace offerings. Aharon's sons brought him the blood, which he splashed against all sides of the altar, and the fat of the ox and of the ram, the fat tail, the fat which covers the inner organs, the kidneys, and the covering of the liver. They put the fat on the breasts, and he made the fat go up in smoke on the altar. The breasts and right thigh Aharon waved as a wave offering before Adonai, as Moshe had ordered. Aharon raised his hands toward the people, blessed them, and came down from offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offerings. Moshe and Aharon entered the tent of meeting, came out and blessed the people. Then the glory of Adonai appeared to all the people. Fire came forth from the presence of Adonai, consuming the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. That'd be a glorious sight if we could see that today. Chapter 10. But Nadab and Abihu, sons of Aharon, each took his censer, put fire on it, laid incense on it, and offered unauthorized fire before Adonai, something he had not ordered them to do. At this, fire came forth from the presence of Adonai and consumed them, so that they died in the presence of Adonai. Moshe said to Aharon, "This is what Adonai said. Through those who are near me, I will be consecrated, and before all the people I will be glorified." Aharon kept silent. Moshe called Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Uziel, Aharon's uncle, and told them, "Come here and carry your cousins away from in front of the sanctuary to a camp outside the camp, to a place outside the camp." They approached and carried them in their tunics out of the camp, as Moshe had said. Then Moshe told Aharon and his sons Eleazar and Ithamar, "Don't unbind your hair or tear your clothes in mourning, so that you won't die and so that Adonai won't be angry with the entire community. Rather, let your kinsmen, the whole house of Israel, mourn because of the destruction Adonai brought about with his fire. Moreover, don't leave the entrance to the tent of meeting, or you will die, because Adonai's anointing oil is on you." Adonai said to Aharon, "Don't drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, neither you nor your sons with you, when you enter the tent of meeting, so that you will not die. This is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations, so that you will distinguish between the holy and the common, and between the unclean and the clean, and so that you will teach the people of Israel all the laws Adonai has told them through Moshe." So if they've been drinking intoxicating liquor, they could possibly drink too much. And when you get drunk, you can't make good decisions. Verse 12. Moshe said to Aharon and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his remaining sons, "Take the grain offering left from the offerings for Adonai made by fire, and eat it without leaven next to the altar, because it is especially holy. Eat it in a holy place, because it is your and your son's share of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. For this is what I have been ordered. The breast that was waved and the thigh that was raised you are to eat in a clean place, you, your sons, and your daughters with you. For these are given as your and your children's share the sacrifices of the peace offerings presented by the people of Israel. They are to bring the raised thigh and the waved breast, along with offerings of fat made by fire, and wave it as a wave offering before Adonai. Then it will belong to you and your descendants with you as your perpetual share, as Adonai has ordered." Then Moshe carefully investigated what had happened to the goat and the sin offering, and discovered that it had been burned up. He became angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the remaining sons of Aharon, and asked, "Why didn't you eat the sin offering in the area of the sanctuary, since it is especially holy? He gave it to you to take away the guilt of the community, to make atonement for them before Adonai. Look, its blood wasn't brought into the sanctuary. You should have eaten it there in the sanctuary as I ordered." Aharon answered Moshe, even though they offered their sin offering and burnt offering today, things like these have happened to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have pleased Adonai? On hearing this reply, Moshe was satisfied. So, chapter 11 starts with the laws that are given about eating and just other different offenses. So we'll pick that up in the next video. I really don't want to do part of it one and then the rest of it, later on. If at all possible, I want to try to keep as much of the same stuff together. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell on this video, and so that you can be notified of future videos, and also share it. And if you're on Rumble, just hit the just share it on Rumble as well, and hit the good Rumble thing on there. So I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and it is almost time for Robin D. Bullock to do his 11th hour. It's at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast. So if you have time, I just ask that you just please watch his video. It's on YouTube, and it is called The 11th Hour by Robin D. Bullock. And I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and bye-bye.